Hey everybody, today I'm only going to be using 3 colors, a yellow, a magenta, and a turquoise tone, as well as 1 colored pencil in a dark purple tone in this watercolor sketchbook. This is a Hahnemühle 100% cotton watercolor sketchbook, and this one has been sitting on my shelf for a long time. So today I decided to finally start this basically, and I wanted to kind of get going with this one and get the creative juices flowing. And I have been feeling very precious about these more expensive, fancy watercolor sketchbooks. So I wanted to kind of counteract that here and do some simple ideas. I'm still really happy with all of these ideas, but they are more on the simple side, and I had to consciously allow myself to do that here. And while the beginning of this lemon here is starting to dry on the right side, I started with a pear on the left side. The fruits are kind of an obvious choice, something very simple to start out with. And then I'm gonna do other stuff as well, not just fruits. You can see that I was very loose with my watercolors here, did a lot of wet on wet techniques, and also it took me a bit to get used to the way that these specific paints dry on this specific paper, because when these paints dry, the paper that absorbs a lot of water and paint, it takes a lot of the saturation out, and I kind of wasn't expecting that. I usually desaturate my colors a lot. I dull them down a lot because I don't really like extremely vibrant colors. But with this one here, it ended up a little bit more on the washed out side. Now, I don't really dislike colors that are more gray or muddy or dirty. Usually they look more natural anyways, especially when it comes to green tones. I prefer that when they are not overly vibrant, let's just say. But here I was still getting used to the paper and the way that all of this works. I kind of filled the pages in different ways. I'm very proud of having mixed this gray tone, by the way. It's a rather neutral, cool gray tone. And here I started with all of the line art and a little bit of details and shading as well with the colored pencil. Lately, I've really been loving using just colored pencils, usually in a dark purple, a dark blue or indigo, or maybe even a turquoise or dark green tone that takes even more of the saturation of this lemon though, because purple and the yellows and oranges are kind of on the opposite of the color wheel, so that does that even further, that desaturates it even further. And that was just an issue for the first page spread here, where I just didn't really anticipate this being a thing, but it kind of proved me in my approach here, where I wanted to be more loose and just practice and take the sketchbook and use it for what it's here for, to practice and to sketch basically. And even though these sketchbooks are more on the fancier side compared to ones that cost a lot less, I don't want to be overly precious as I have been. I was kind of waiting for the right moment to use these, but if I don't use them at all, I am wasting them, and if I use them, I am not. So here is the first really simple page spread, I have to say. That was just a warm-up starting point in a way. And here I wanted to do a landscape, and I mixed a red color, and I don't really particularly like extremely vibrant red tones personally. It's just not something that I like. So this color was a bit too vibrant for my taste anyways, and then it dried a lot more desaturated, which is nice. I think it could have dried a bit less desaturated, so I was still getting the hang of the combination of the materials here, but I was starting to understand it a little bit more in a way. And I also came to the conclusion that I just don't like red. It's just not my thing. I usually use pink tones or very cool red tones instead of more warmer red tones in my illustrations. And this kind of proved me in that thinking. I still like this illustration, but I think that the color scheme could have been improved a little bit. I used only these 3 colors in all of my paintings here. I used colors from a Paul Rubens set, and I picked Cadmium Yellow Light, which is PY35, Quinacridone Maroon, which is PV42, and Translucent Turquoise, which is PB16. And those were just the colors that I liked on the swatch sheet and wanted to give a go together. I usually would have used more of a PV19, which is also a pink red color, but the PV19 in the Paul Rubens set is a bit too red for my taste, so I opted for the more magenta looking option. And I did realize filming all of this and doing all of these pieces, you can't really mix every single color, especially with this paper that kind of takes out the saturation a little bit. But I was able to mix a big variety of colors, and I didn't really have anything that was severely lacking. If you want to mix a more vibrant purple tone, I would use an ultramarine instead of a turquoise, obviously. If you want a more vibrant orange tone, I would mix a warm red tone with a yellow tone that also leans more towards an orange. So this is still limited in the colors that you can mix, also depending on the watercolors and the brands you use. But you can get pretty far with all of these colors, is what I'm trying to say. So with this idea here on the left side, I actually went on Google and I typed in random country generator because I wanted some new landscapes and just have some new suggestions. And the one I think that inspired this one was when it recommended Malaysia. And then I typed Malaysia into Pinterest, just picked one of the pictures there and stylized that quite a lot, obviously, but took that as a starting point. So if you're looking for ideas for new landscapes and it's always promoting the same stuff and the algorithm just keeps on showing you stuff that you've already done. For me at a time, it was only these cottage core little buildings, houses in the forest, and it just started to only show me that stuff. So whenever I want to train the algorithm to show me new stuff, I just type in things that are new in a way. So coming up with a random thing to type in and then using that as inspiration is sometimes a good idea to come up with something new and to kind of branch out a little bit. And while this one is still very much in my comfort zone, style-wise and theme-wise, it is a little bit different and something that I otherwise probably wouldn't have come up with. So I definitely recommend trying these types of things where you can just have a different variety of things that it might show you. And then the algorithm also adapts and shows you a bigger variety, if that makes sense. So I used the colored pencil for some shading as well as the line art. And here is the second page spread for today. And now we're already on to the next one. I used this book called Everyday Watercolor. It is by Jenna Rainey, and I've had this for a while. I wanted to use the flowers here as an inspiration. Unfortunately, I lost part of the footage of this one here because my SD card started to act up. And ironically, I'm also recording this voiceover for the second time right now because my other SD card also decided to act up after I recorded the voiceover. It's absolutely, you can't hear a word that I said. It's completely broken. So I don't know, the technical things are not working in my favor right now, but it is what it is. Maybe I am doing a better job this time with the voiceover. I really hope so that it was at least worth it. But you can see that I was loosely copying her design, mainly to get a starting point with the colors and a little bit with the composition. I squished it together to fit this format that I have here. I have this square format. And I also, with loose florals, I recommend to not follow exactly somebody else's art, even if it's a tutorial or, like in this case, it's from an instructional book. I would recommend still trying to be as loose as you can, because otherwise it's going to look a little bit stiff. And this one did turn out a little bit on the stiff side, I have to say. I don't know if you can see that or if it's just something that I see because I worked on it and I can kind of feel the stiffness. I tried to be as loose as I can though, but I do have in my online art membership a class about loose florals where I go a lot more into depth about this. So I will link my membership in the description box below. You can see right now that I started to also sketch a very simple donut, and I tried to mix a somewhat tasty color for the donut itself. I tried my best here. I think it was okay. It could have looked tastier, but it is okay enough for the fact that I had to mix this color from 3 colors that are definitely not brown. I am happy with this, and I used the magenta pretty much as is for the glazing, and this donut is also inspired by one of the pieces, or some of the pieces actually in the book. I kind of combined a few donuts and turned it into my own donut, but took that as an inspiration there. And with the membership as well, people were confused last time when I said to try the free trial and check out the membership, that there's no join the membership button. I wanna reiterate that the membership is not on YouTube. It is on the same platform that my courses are on. So I have a link for it in the description box below. You can check that out. It explains everything there, and you can sign up for the free trial. You don't have to add a payment method yet. If you don't add one, the trial will just expire after 7 days. There's no strings attached. If you want to sign up after those 7 days or in between that time, if you decide you want to stay there, then you can always add a payment method. And there is, I think it only takes credit cards and some types of debit cards. If you don't have that, if you want to pay with PayPal, then let me know, because I have an option for that as well, but you have to reach out to me. So I just want to make that clear because there was a bit of confusion in my last video. Here's the page spread of this one. The colors were a lot more vibrant this time already when I got to understand how the colors work with the paper. This one here is my favorite one probably of this video. I again went on Google and I typed in random animal generator, and one of the suggestions that came up was a red panda. And I thought, I don't think I've ever painted a red panda. I might have in the very distant past, but I don't really remember. So I thought, since they're really cute and fluffy, that this would be a fun one to do. And I also stylized it a bit. I gave it a really fluffy and big head, and I really played around with the colors here. At this point, I knew that the colors would dry a lot more desaturated on this paper anyways. So I went all in and made it really vibrant and just did a bunch of layers and glazing. And this is one of the more complicated ideas in this video. I did something very simple on the other side to kind of balance that out, but I am really happy with this one. I don't know if I said this in this recording yet or in the other one, but I found that mixing oranges was one of the limitations of the colors that I picked. Really vibrant oranges were a bit of a struggle, but here with the red panda, it actually worked out quite well. So I definitely recommend, if you're doing something like that, if you have a limited color palette, allow yourself to practice a little bit and to play around, because you will get the hang of it after a bit, and you will definitely get better at mixing the colors that you want. As well, if you're using paper that you're not that used to, then the same thing applies, because the paints will look very different depending on the paper you're painting on. And with this one here, I was really proud of how everything turned out and how I was able to use the colors basically. If the voiceover in this one is a little bit scattered, it is because I have no idea what I already mentioned and what I didn't, because I literally recorded the first version just a few minutes ago. So it is a little bit confusing in my brain right now. I hope it's not too bad. Here I also mixed a purple tone. If you want really vibrant purple tones, then I recommend using an ultramarine and pink tone or magenta tone. Usually I would go for a PV19 type of color, but since I had my limited colors here, the purples aren't as vibrant because I used a turquoise to mix. But here on this page, you can actually see the big variety of colors that I was able to paint with just these three. And also on this page, you can see very well how different the colors dried when they dried, basically, how different they looked and how much less saturated they looked. So I went in, they were very vibrant. I was a bit worried at this point that they were too vibrant, but when they dried, they were absolutely the way that I wanted them. Here you can see what they look like dry, completely different. I like them this way a lot more, but I had to factor that in, and I had to paint very vibrantly so that it would dry the way that I want, if that makes any sense. But at this point, I had really gotten the hang of it, and I started to really enjoy this. So I'm looking forward to hearing if you all enjoy this type of video, because I would love to do it again. It is a really nice idea to just get out of the art block and just be a little bit less rigid with your art practice if you're a bit quicker. All of the pieces that I did in this video took me not much over half an hour. Some of them were quicker, some of them took a bit longer, but on average I would say maybe 35 minutes. So a lot quicker than some of the other illustrations that I've been doing. And I have definitely come to the realization that I need a bit of a mixture between the more refined illustrations that take a lot longer and these really quick ideas where I can just get started and get the creative juices flowing and get to know my materials basically and practice a little bit. If you have a balance of those two, I think that is probably the best medicine for any art block or anything that will get you into this more rigid state of mind where it is harder to create. So I think doing these and then afterwards maybe doing something more advanced would be a really nice combination. So here is the next one already. This is one of the more complicated ones, I would say, in comparison to the others. It is still kind of simple in the idea, but it took me probably the longest out of all of them. Here I just painted a door. I did a bit of a sketch here as well, and then kind of loosely colored that in. I wanted it to be a very loose and quick style. I knew that. I didn't want it to be overly defined or anything, but I would like to do a similar scene maybe in gouache or maybe even in oil paints, because I think that could be a really cool concept for something to go more in depth in with all of the layers and the colors. The main subject here is the door, so I played around a lot with the colors and with watercolor effects and just threw the colors on the page basically and just saw what happened basically and just let the paints flow and do their thing. And then we have the greenery that is growing on the wall next to the door, and I really enjoy that the colors kind of repeat in the piece. We have the pink that is on the door repeated on the flowers. I had sort of a reference picture for this, but I was very loosely using it just as an idea and as a starting point. The picture had the flowers on the wall just on one side, but I decided to repeat the pink in the door because that would just make the piece look a bit more cohesive if we have the colors spread all over, if that makes sense. I usually like to repeat my colors in multiple areas throughout the art piece, and then it just looks a little bit more cohesive and not like just some part is sticking out and doesn't really fit in together with the rest. It really depends on taste. Sometimes you want the main subject to have a different color if that's the goal that you have, but I usually like to have a very cohesive color palette. And yeah, I am really happy with all of the pieces that I did for this one, even though they were on the quicker and simpler side. I really enjoyed doing all of these, and I would like to do more of these if these are what you also enjoy. I don't know what else I already said or didn't say. I know that in the first recording I talked a little bit about my online art membership, so I will definitely link that in the description box, and just click on the link and it will explain everything there is in the membership. There is a variety of art classes already. We have recordings from live sessions that are in good quality though. I always record them with my main camera as well, so that the recording is really good quality. And I also have specific art classes. I'm also currently thinking about what I wanna still do for the art classes. I did an art class about color mixing, which could be a really good go-to after this video because we talked quite a bit about color mixing. I also did a very in-depth one about lights and shadows. I am thinking that I want to do more of these basic topics, but I also have just specific tutorials where I show you. I recently did one where I show you how to paint a pumpkin. I painted a big variety of landscapes. We painted a bird. The bird was actually a limited color palette such as this one. I believe the only other color that I used for the bird was that I used a Naples yellow instead, which I wouldn't use usually for a main mixing color, but if it's just one piece that you're doing, your limited color palette could have any colors. You could pick 2 green tones and an orange and make a really nice art piece. It just wouldn't be a color palette for a big variety of art pieces, if that makes sense. So with this video here, I wanted to pick colors that I could mix to get a big variety. And I kind of wanted to prove that you don't need a huge amount of supplies to get something good working. And even the super fancy sketchbook paper gave me a bit of a struggle here. So you don't even need that, though I would say that I would rather use a few really nice art supplies than use 600 colors of a really low quality brand. So maybe I will do a video like this with my Daniel Smith colors. I've been feeling very precious about those as well and have used them very little in the past, so maybe that could also be an idea. And here on the left side, I again wanted to balance it a little bit and do something that is really simple, and I just painted balloons and did various watercolor wet on wet effects here with them, just very loose, and played around with different colors and just filled the page with those. This really reminded me of the pieces that I used to do years ago when I did a lot of these simple art ideas videos. And back in the day, my skill level wasn't that high, so I did a lot of these simple paintings because that was kind of all I could, or all I was able to do, at least in a shorter amount of time. So this kind of almost felt nostalgic for me, but I'm sure if I compared this to the simple art pieces that I did back then, this one would still look better and more defined and just nicer in general. But that is the beauty of sketchbooks, that you can flip through and see how much you have improved. And I really enjoyed doing something quick for a change for these ones. And I, in the end, also really got the hang of all of the colors. So here is this page, and then here we have a flip through of all of the pages that we have done in this video. I can't believe I did so many in such a short amount of time, and I like all of these page spreads, some more than others, but I like all of them. If you'd like to see more fun and creative painting ideas, then check out this video next.